Listen to me, please. You're like me, a Homo sapiens, a wise human. Life, a miracle in the universe, appeared around 4 billion years ago, and we humans, only 200,000 years ago. Yet we have succeeded in disrupting the balance that is so essential to life on Earth. Listen carefully to this extraordinary story, which is yours, and decide what you want to do with it. These are traces of our origins. At the beginning, our planet was no more than a chaos of fire, formed in the wake of its star, the sun. A cloud of agglutinated dust particles, similar to so many similar clusters in the universe. Yet this was where the miracle of life occurred. The Earth counts time in billions of years. It took more than 4 billion years for it to make trees. In the chain of species, trees are a pinnacle, a perfect living sculpture. Trees defy gravity. They are the only natural element in perpetual movement toward the sky. They grow unhurriedly toward the sun that nourishes their foliage. They have inherited from those minuscule cyanobacteria the power to capture light's energy. They store it and feed off it, turning it into wood and leaves, which then decompose into a mixture of water, mineral. And that's where you, Homo sapiens, wise human, enter the story. You benefit from a fabulous 4 billion year old legacy bequeathed by the Earth. You're only 200,000 years old. The first towns grew up less than 600 years ago. It was a considerable leap in human history. Why towns? Because they allowed humans to defend themselves more easily. They became social beings, meeting and sharing knowledge and crafts, blending their similarities and differences. In a word, they became civilized. But the only energy at their disposal was provided by nature and the strength of their bodies. It was the story of humankind for thousands of years. It still is for 1 person in 4, over 1.5 billion human beings. more than the combined population of all the wealthy nations. Taking from the earth only the strictly necessary. For a long time, the relationship between humans and the planet was evenly balanced. For a long time, the economy seemed like a natural and equitable alliance.
In desirable condition where the number of existing human population exceeds the current capacity of Earth. Overpopulation is caused by a number of factors: reduced mortality rate, better medical facilities, depletion of precious resources are few of the causes which results in overpopulation. It is possible for a sparsely populated area to become densely populated if it's not able to sustain life. Growing advances in technology, which with each coming year has affected humanity in many ways. One of these has been the ability to save lives and create better medical treatment for all. A direct result of this has been increased lifespan and the growth of the population. In the past 50 or so years, the growth of the population has boomed and has turned into overpopulation. In the history of our species, the birth and the death rate have always been able to balance each and maintain a population growth rate that is sustainable. Since the time of the bubonic plague in the 1400s, the growth of population has been on a constant increase. Between the time of the plague and the 21st century, there was been hundreds and thousands of wars, natural calamities, and man-made hazards. However, no one of these have made a dent on the population. Developing nations face the problem of overpopulation more than developed countries, but it affects most of the earth as of now. When we are talking about overpopulation, we should first understand the causes of it. Causes of overpopulation in the world, birth control, environmental impact, COVID-19 and overpopulation are some of these topics that we will be talking about. Decline in the death rate. At the root of the overpopulation is the difference between the overall birth rate and the death rate in population. If the number of children born each year equals to the number of adults that die, then the population will stabilize. Talking about overpopulation shows that while there are many factors that can increase the death rate for short periods of time, the ones that increase the birth rate do so over a long period of time. The discovery of agriculture by our ancestors was one factor that provided them with the ability to sustain their nutrition without hunting. This created the first imbalance between the two rates. Following this came the Industrial Revolution. The technology advancement was perhaps the biggest reason why the balance has been permanently disturbed. Since it was able to produce better means of producing food, which allowed families to feed more mouths, medical science made many discoveries, thanks to which they were able to defeat a whole range of diseases, illness that had claimed thousands of lives. Till now, were cured because of the invention of vaccines. Combining the increase in food supply with fewer means of mortality tripped affect the balance and became a starting point of overpopulation.
Okay. causes of the overpopulation. It took hundreds of years to reach 1 billion inhabitants. However, a little more than 2 centuries, that number increased sevenfold. Why? There are factors that allow this spectacular population growth. The causes of the overpopulation can be diverse, such as medical advancement, increased agricultural productivity, increased longevity, migration, and family planning. First, decrease in mortality rate thanks to medicine. The scientific advance have allowed us to overcome disease that have been fatal. For example, the invention of vaccine and the discovery of penicillin saved thousands of lives. They have been a key factor in the excessive population growth. On the other hand, the scientific research and technological improvement made it possible to improve agricultural production, grow throughout the year, more resistant seed, pesticides. Also, improvement in fishing and livestock technique also contribute for having more food for the population. Migrations. In certain countries, there are endeavors of individuals who decide to make their life elsewhere or who comes from other regions for study, for working. The impact of migration has been highly relevant. Change in the quality of life. In general, actually, in many countries has a vigorous economy, a stable policy, a high demand for workers, or a large market for the consumption of service are usually factors that generate immigration and positive population growth. Signs that inhabitants have a high level of life that guarantee them a future. This is very common. Actually, the social pressures, mostly from family, to increase early marriage and have children, which increase the chances for having more children, especially of an educated family where family planning often not present. Moreover, modern methods of birth control and family planning usually don't reach the illiterate population of society. And some cultures promote belief and expectation to many of a certain age to marriage or have a certain number of children. Finally, increased longevity. If people live longer, they will be able to reproduce more, and they will also live to see their descendants reach adulthood, thus generating an elderly population.
I am going to talk to you about the cause of overpopulation. The problem of human overpopulation is practically recent in relation to the age of planet Earth. This is worldwide problem, and it is alarming to see how the social phenomena increase. The cause of overpopulation is mainly due to an exponential increase in births, and relatively because mortality has decreased for medical advance and cultural, social, and economic factors. the impact of migration in search of a better quality of life, and consequently resources are depleted. All these causes choosing people as in the environment when the area of greatest demand is scarce. The overpopulation in these geographical areas increase because each territory has a certain capacity to be occupied. If the capacity is exceeded, then in the balance of resources destined for subsistence is affected. The quality of life as all other species altered because they reproduce it more than necessary. The situation occurs more frequently in less developed places with a lot of poverty and less urbanism.
Overpopulation. The human being reproduces in an accelerated way. Every second a newborn adds to world population. There already faces problems of housing, health, food, education, recreation, and problems about the environment. However, at the same time, humanity faces a great paradox. About becomes increasingly long life, and for the majority, the difficulty is also increasing to achieve a quality of life that covers the acceptable parameters for organisms like the ONU. On the other hand, in some places, the birth rate decreases. Indicators from the United Nations establish that the birth rate reduced globally, and consequently a forecast not very good for the future. The population will get older and older and older, and ONU predicts that in addition, the breadth in the range of life will be continued to advance due to improvements in disease treatment and prevention. Life expectancy is currently 72 years old and will be reached 77 in the world average by 2050. The most developed countries actually reach 100 years, and in the poorest it falls to 63. But regardless of the average life expectancy, they are all human that have needs. They need water, they need food, they need employment, they need a home, they need service, health service, infrastructure, drainage, electricity, recreation spaces, and public policies oriented to cover basic requirements, such as those set forth in the third article of the Universal Human Rights, which to the letter indicates that every individual person has the right to have a dignified life, liberty, and security for his person. For experts, these are the great challenge of humanity and whose dissatisfaction is transformed into serious problems in daily life. those that most affect society's contemporary social insecurity, violence, organized crime, lack of education, no access to health, and lack of job sources, which in some way influence the personal, family, stability, and many more aspects. There are two aspects that I'm going to talk about. One of them is longevity, and the other one is needs. Longevity in 2008, according to the ONU, between 2008 and 2050, the number of the people aged 80 and over will increase almost 4 times to reach 395 million. It is unprecedented, even if the story that most middle-aged and even older people have a living. Older people have living parents, and as already happens in our days, this means that more of the children will get to know their grandparents and even their. So it's good, but at the same time, women live on average 62 years longer than men. The ONU conclusion is forceful. Demographic has consequences.
Demographic control, a tool of the wealthy. Many historians of population control believe that human beings will always produce faster than the earth is capable of feeding them. Others think that population control is the practice of reducing or maintaining or increasing the number of the individual in a given population, be it human, animal, or plant species in a territory. Population control is carried out by acting basically in two variables, birth rate and mortality. The human population is mainly subjected to the natural and aggressive strategy like a rest of the species through their evolution year. On the strategy for model family type with a maximum of 2 children is China. It's one of the most striking examples for population control in a recent decades through legal economical procedures. For example, forcing fine and bearing the cost of healthy service to who exceed the market limits, generally 1 or 2 children per couple. But in Mexico, birth problems begin to strengthen the overcrowding trend that increases the difficulty in public service. Many people travel long distance every day, get to work, school or recreation, which will mean high transportation costs and time, as well as serious negative impacts for the environment. In the last 50 years, Mexico has lost much its rainforest. Currently, it has one of the highest deforestation in Latin America, where a society that grows every year. In the last 65 years, our population has increased a little more than 4 times, which places us in 11th place among the most population countries in the world. The most serious thing is that entities such as the state of Mexico, Chiapas, and Nuevo León have a high number of residents and high population growth. My opinion is that demographic control is far from stopping. At last, each about 1.5 million of Mexicans are born. In the none of the candidate has spoken of the number of inhabitants of Mexico. None have rephrased whether or not population growth should stop. They show that they ignore this issue. Nobody has told them that this is a problem. It seems to them that this is what happened in Mexico. Too many people want to offer the then incentive for a better life, organized crime. It would rather say the consequence or high number of people who don't see a clear future. And finally, the ability to produce food for meet domestic demand.
The environmental impact is the effect that human activity produces on the environment. Technically, it is the alteration in the environment baseline: water, air, soil. People action on the environment always causes effect on it. The concept can be extended to the effect of a catastrophic natural phenomenon as the main result we have industrialization. From these various types of action are derived, such as contamination of the seas, radioactive energy waste, or radioactive nuclear waste, the emission of harmful gases or loss of natural habitat, among others. Other things that must be taken into account with respect to the environment is the obtaining and consumption of energy, such as the emission of greenhouse gases such as CO2, which are causing climate change. Ecology is the science that deals with measuring impact and try to minimize it when it is quantified, valued, and those responsible are required to take three most important concepts: global, social, economic. In this 3 points, we can see how the world is truly devastating. Global, most of the energy used in the world comes from oil and natural gas. Hence, the greatest contamination, such as oil, spilling in seas and rivers, damaging marine fauna as well as all kinds of wild birds. Social, alteration of the social relation of the values, such as increasingly call humanity before the change that our planet is undergoing. Economic, degradation in the competitiveness of the productive sector, lack of quality in the production chains, hunger costs derived from the need, effect on labor productivity. Given this, can we do something? Maybe you, like me, had many unanswered questions, and you end up thinking that you couldn't change the world. And you're right, you couldn't change you and change you, and you've already already impacted the world.
I'm Jared, and I'm going to talk about overpopulation, its problem and consequence. So I'm going to start talking about one of them. And one of the principal problems is lack of search. Actually, and nowadays we can see how difficult it is to get energy, water, food, and housing because all the things it's running up. So I consider that another problem is hunger in the world. A lot of people don't have money and they can get something for eat or food. Another problem either is the contamination because as long the overpopulation grow up, there will be contamination. Because every problem has a consequence, I'm going to say 5 important consequences of the overpopulation. So I'm going to start saying that one of them is the depletion of natural resources. How I say all the sources are running out. A lot of people don't have a house, they can get food, they can drink water, they can get water in countries like Africa and all those places. People can get water, and this is one of the consequences. Another consequence is the environmental degradation. So I consider that our ancestors live a better life than us. We don't have a great life, and we don't live a great life because we have a level up of contamination. And another problem is unemployment. People can get work easily, and this brings us to the next number, who is the increase of the cost of life. I consider that in the last years all the things are turned in something expensive. Life is turning in something expensive because basic things that oil, gas, the water, a housing, and all the things are becoming and something expensive, and a lot of people don't have a work. And for all those people, and for all these people, is difficult have a great life because they don't have money, they don't have a house, they don't have the basic things that a human needs for have a good life. And the next thing is the technological advance. I consider that this is a bad thing and a good thing because I consider that these things bring us science, medicine, but these things either brings wars, sick, and all the things that can be dangerous for all the world.
The uncontrollable increase of the overpopulation, the abandon of the rural zone to the population center in order to get a better employment, bring a rise of poverty never seen before near of the population centers. All this, jointly with a poor public service, a lack of education of the basic hygiene and the sanitation norms, as a result, a perfect breeding ground to possible outbreaks of disease that could be put in serious danger to human life. Let's take for example the Mexico City and its poor neighborhoods. These neighborhoods, such as Ecatepec and Tepito, they have all the necessary conditions to to are uncontrollable in outbreaks of disease such as typhoid fever, and stomach flu, and the most new and potentially mortal disease, COVID-19. The physical interaction without the slightest of health, such as the hand cleaning, the use of disposable masks, the healthy social distance, coupled with the typical willingness of the local people, should be a point of interest of the health authority, accompanied of the awareness at the sanitation protected areas. So how to prevent the spread of fake news that incite the civil disobedience?
For me, this is one of the best solutions, and it is to have control over the birds, the control birds as well. And what is it? Well, in each family, probably they could have one or two children for each family. Yes, and it's one of the best idea. Or also the anti-conceptive methods and planify when they are in relationship, because in this situation nowadays we are in the moment where the humanity is growing up. The humanity is growing up as many persons each